Welcome to Fried on Business. He grew up in South Florida, has been in business here since the early 90s, and has closed over $3 billion in deals. He's seen it all. He always has an opinion, and he's always ready to share it. Informed, entertaining, and connected, he has his finger on the pulse of South Florida's business community. He's JimFried, and this is Fried on Business.
Welcome to another edition of Fried on Business. This is episode number 799. I can't believe it. Episode 800 is next week. We've got a real special episode with Rebecca Carlson, looking back and looking forward and talking about marketing. It's going to be amazing. I want to welcome you to our show. We're streaming live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. We love Twitch. And Instagram. Look for us at Fried on Business or at JimFried. I want to mention we're going to be moving to LinkedIn at Fried on Business and YouTube at Fried on Business more robustly in the future. Today, our guest is our old friend, Brian Gale. Brian Gale is the preeminent office leasing and oracle of office for South Florida in specific. And in general, we're also probably going to talk a little bit of office nationwide. Before we get to that, I want to thank our sponsors for well over a decade, Warren Henry. I want to give a special shout out to Ismet Yagzi, who's really been working with me and helping me all these many years on my cars and my service and just making me feel like I'm part of the Warren Henry family. I want to thank Larry, Warren, Eric, the whole team over at Warren Henry Auto, 151st and Biscayne, our store up in Gainesville that Brian and I love to go shop for cars at. They sell Audis, and we'll talk more about Warren Henry later on in the show. But now on with our guest, Brian Gale. Brian, where are you?
Hey, Jim. How are you, buddy? Always great to be on your show. You know how much I love you.
I love you too, Brian. And, let's get a start by talking about something that's near and dear to our heart. This week, the Gators actually got invited to a bowl game after beating our arch rival, FSU. I feel bad for Mike Norville and FSU. No, I don't.
Not at all, actually.
The guy from UCF got fired. He's matriculating to FSU. The basketball team looks absolutely awesome. So I got to say it. It's great to be a Gator.
Great to be a Gator. Good times right now. It's funny. Somebody just sent me something. You know, Jimmy, we're no Florida State fans by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, I've been asking a lot of my Florida State fans if they were just going to get rid of the program at this point. Haven't been getting good feedback from people on that. But what was interesting is someone just sent me something, and it's two guys on a bus. One's a Hurricane fan, and but right underneath it says 10-2, and he's so upset. And then there's a Gator fan on the other side of the bus. It says 7-5. He couldn't be more ecstatic, right?
It's true.
It's like it was such a tough start. Billy had half foot, at least one of the feet out the door, and but he brought in the Gatorade Player of the Year, DJ Lagway, and everything changed. And they won 4 of their last 5. I mean, things in Gainesville seem to be heading the right way.
Yeah, we were ahead of Georgia when he went out in the game, and then we most of the scoring against Texas was off of some turnovers and bad luck. So who knows what would have happened? But the Gators are heading in the right way. We read a great column in the Orlando Sentinel a while back that basically said sometimes perspective is needed to know when you got it good. And I think the Gators have perspective, and they know when they got it good.
Well, they went from 51th ranked recruiting class to the 9th ranked within a 3-week period. So things certainly are heading in the right direction for us. So it's exciting. And my daughter's a freshman there now. So, she says, Dad, are you going to literally come up every week? I'm like, not every week, but, it's just every other.
That's what the direct flights are for. So let's talk about, the penthouse and the outhouse. We'll talk about office. It depends on which block you're on, which building you're in, which city you're in. But there's some office buildings, the ones you handle, that are really doing well. There's other office buildings in other marketplaces that they're still trying to find the bottom of the marketplace. Tell me a little bit about, first of all, let's talk about Miami. People say, what's going on in Miami? And I say, Miami's white hot.
Well, it is. In certain submarkets, it's very, very hot. And I would say the number one submarket in the United States of America for office today is the Brickell Avenue office market. Our rents have more than doubled since the start of the pandemic in early 20. So has that been, 4 years now, 5 years now? And so, we've got like this Brickell Avenue market right now. you've got 3 full floors of Class A space available in the entire Brickell market. So literally 3 tenants each could take a floor, and there'd be no full floors available in the entire Brickell market. So we had rents of 60. We're way into the hundreds now. We did a $190 lease, real lease, 28,000 square feet, 10-year deal at $190 a foot starting rent.
So that's base rent, not add-ons and TI recovery.
No, that includes, Miami's a gross full service market, so it includes the $25 operating expenses and stuff like that. So you can call it whatever, 165, 170 net. We have our last deal out right now at 830 Brickell, which looks like it's going to trade or lease around $225 a foot. So, we still have an escalating rents in Miami. Again, it's certain submarkets, but I would tell you that downtown West Palm Beach and Brickell Avenue are probably the 2 hottest markets in the United States.
Now, is that being driven by the financial sector? I mean, that's what I read, but I don't know. I don't talk to
Sure. I mean, it's migration, right? So look at any other city in America, from Chicago, Northern California, LA. They don't have positive migration happening in those cities. And so here's a really interesting stat. I gave this to a client the other day. I blew him away. I said, we had 1.5 million square feet of new to market tenants lease space in Miami during COVID or since COVID started. Okay. 1.5 million. All right. 1.5 million square feet in New York City is one building. Nothing changes. One tenant moves in, takes a full 1.5 million square foot building. That's it. In Miami, because we're such a boutique market, because we really are a small market, rents doubled with 1.5 million square feet.
That's great. Now, so there's a lot of people that were here. What happened to them? Are they moving out? Are they going other places? Are they skinnying up? The impact of return to work, all those little topics, a bunch of softballs right at you.
Yeah. I mean, I think return to work is definitely transitioning now. People are coming back to the office. Amazon about 30 days ago mandated a 5-day a week that everyone has to come into the office. They're the leader. People will follow. We're seeing it. Even like here at Cushman, our leaders here are like, hey, guys, I really would like to start to see everyone start to come back every day. Because, nowadays, look, with, the ability to have Microsoft Teams and your phone and, you could be a lot more, sort of fluid out there and not be having to sit at your desk answering the phone. But, the camaraderie and the training of the young kids and all that is so important for corporate culture that we really are. And I'll tell you another stat. In one of our buildings, about 750,000 square foot downtown building that we lease and manage, we were probably sitting around 65%, not occupied, not leased, but people who, the building's 95% leased, but 65% of the people sitting there swiping cards coming in we're up to about 85% now.
A lot of it is very important. It's a social aspect. I believe that there's a lot of miscommunication or a lot of slowness in reactive time when you're not physically around. Relationship building is what we really do for a living, and that really doesn't happen too easily over the phone or on the video call. I must admit that I almost never do a regular phone call anymore. They're always video calls because I want to understand the body language of the person, but really all I'm seeing is a facial part. I will admit I am not wearing shorts today.
Yes.
I could literally stand up and look like a professional. I dress for work every day just to feel like that.
It's important. And businesses are realizing that, they were scared to lose employees is really how it all sort of started, right? Well, it started like you don't want to die, right? You come to the office, you get COVID, you die. But then it was just like, hey, we don't want to lose these employees. It's important because, our competitors are doing it. But now the mindset's really changed. It's like, hey, if we're going to be profitable, if you want a job, I need you to come into the office and be a part of the company. And so that's helping the office market a lot.
Now that's here in Miami. I call around the country, doing capital markets transactions in other markets. In a lot of markets, that hasn't happened. Is it a national trend, or is it just here locally in Miami and maybe in Dallas?
No, I think it's a national trend. What's interesting is the folks in New York were really the first ones to get back. Even though the New York office market suffered a bunch in the beginning of COVID, that was probably more from a lack of migration, coming to New York and people sort of leaving. But, the New York mentality is different, right? It's a lot more sort of hardworking and kind of keep up with the Joneses. If everyone's coming in the office, you got to come in the office. So I would say New York it probably led the country and certainly leads the country in terms of having people come back to the office. But, Northern California, the tech industry, there's been no expansion of tech companies over the last 5-year period, right? Which has actually kind of hurt some of the submarkets in Miami, by the way, like Wynwood, for instance, which is this growing market. Drive by Wynwood, right? There's more cranes than you could shake a stick at. And you've got all the food groups there now. You had retail. Now you have hospitality, residential, office. And so you could feel the growth really happening in that Wynwood market. But because it's, very tech-centric, right, for the types of tenants that are going there, and those industries, Meta said about 3 years ago they were going to spend $1 billion shrinking their footprint throughout the world. And so with the tech industry consolidating, just not in terms of them, merging or acquiring other companies, just shrinking their footprint has hurt a lot of markets, like especially Northern California.
We have submarkets like Coconut Grove that is a real limited supply, but it's right up against all the executive housing. We have Coral Gables. I got to believe those markets have been relatively stable with real hard cap on supply that can be delivered there.
Coral Gables has been one of the hottest markets in South Florida, Jim. What happened was when you have rents of $50 on Brickell that are now $130, you've got tenants saying, all right, I can't do that, right? I'm not going to do that. I live in the Gables. Why don't I go save $50 a foot and go to the Gables? And that's also sort of the theory for downtown, right? Because downtown, unlike Brickell, has got a 23% vacancy, so there's a lot of space there. But Coral Gables has seen a spike in rent over the last 2 years. We're continuing to see a spike in rent because people are getting priced out of Brickell, and they're realizing that they could have a shorter commute to work in a beautiful city like Coral Gables that has executive housing and restaurants and all the things you want, and save $50 a foot. So Gables has been extremely hot.
Well, also, it's tough to deliver supply in the office space because it's such a chunky delivery. It takes a long time to plan it. It's not easy to finance. So I think that plays to the benefit of these markets and the existing buildings. I just yesterday was in Coral Gables. I met somebody in a very old building in their brand new space. It was gorgeous. We got outside, we walked outside, we ate outside. The restaurant was literally directly across the street. It was really nice. There's all kinds of different genres to eat. You don't have to just go to Hillstone. And we had just a great time. And I drove my car. I parked right outside the building. Not something you're really going to do in Brickell.
Now, you mentioned Coconut Grove earlier, which is really an incredible little market. The Grovites, man, they're special. We leased Related's building in the beginning of COVID, which is 2850 Tiger Tail, to D1 Capital and a lot of other big names, and we leased that very, very quickly. There's been some other smaller buildings that have come online since then. The demand for Coconut Grove today is super strong. We just got hired by the Alan Morris Company. They're going to spec a brand new office building. Came out about a week ago. It was all over the news. About 100,000 square foot, really, really high end building, right just to the west of Coco Walk. And we're super excited with balconies. It's going to be a really special office building. And there's so much pent up demand to be in Coconut Grove right now that we think this thing's going to lease pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so. I used to live in Coconut Grove. We moved back to Edgewater. I go to Wynwood all the time. Everybody that lives in my building came from someplace else. The values in my building from a residential standpoint have gone through the roof as well. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be right back with Brian Gale. We're going to get the last word on the office market here locally and nationally with our good friend Brian Gale, who I met, 35 years ago on the NAIOP bus tour?
It's been a minute.
Back after this, Mr. Mendoza, take it away. All right, we're talking today with Brian Gale. We're talking about the office building and the impact that people that are moving their jobs to South Florida has had. When people move to South Florida, they buy more cars. That's why Warren Henry has seen incredible success here with their stores, Land Rover and Range Rover, in South Dade and also in West Broward. Of course, they've got their Hallmark store at 151st and Biscayne, Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, Jaguar, and Lincoln. That's where we buy our cars. Up in Gainesville, they sell Audis. Down in the Keys, they've got a store that sells them all. They are all come with the Warren Henry advantage. They're all great cars. I want to thank Warren Henry. This is episode 799. Warren Henry's been involved since probably episode about 100. So we want to thank them for being with us. And I have to say it from the bottom of my heart, always the best price, always the best service. Join me as a member of the Warren Henry family. Always the best price, always the best service. Always Warren Henry. All right, we're back. We're here with Brian Gale. Brian's the, fancy title from Cushman and Wakefield, who runs all the best office space in town, does all the great leases, really knows what's going on. I want to remind everybody to contact me, JimFried at Sandstone Realty Advisors. But now it's time for the last word, the big takeaway from Brian Gale. Brian,
right here.
Here's my favorite gator, the office leasing guy. Brian, what can we expect? Our office is at 1450 Brickell. You've got another new building that sets the pace today. There's another one you're leasing. I guess it's fully leased at this point, but just
830 Brickell.
What's on the horizon? Office space is chunky. What's next for Brickell?
Well, you're going to see a few new buildings come on Brickell, which, if you recall, back in 2010, there were 3 buildings that came on the market at the same time. Your building at 1450, 600 Brickell, and the Wells Fargo Center on the north end of the Brickell Bridge. And it took about 7 or 8 years for that space to really get leased up. It was 1.9 million square feet, came online at the same time. The timing of office is everything, okay? And we tell our clients this all the time. The timing is everything, okay? And holding office for 20 years is probably not the most prudent thing either. It's very capital intensive, but if you could time it, bump those rents up, right? Cap rates come down, man, you could do really, really well. Citadel's going to build. Ken Griffin's going to build his building, right? He's got the site, paid $368 million. Meanwhile, I was involved in the original sale of that land for $16 million back in '97. To say it appreciated would be an understatement. But he's going to build. What he builds, he doesn't know yet. And so whether it's all office, it's a portion of a hotel, maybe a little resi, what have you, but it's going to be super, super high end. That building will happen. The other building that's going to happen is the Banco Santander site at 1401 Brickell. They've already got a big green shield around it now. They've been trying to do a new building there for 15 years. They've never had the ability to be able to find 100,000 square feet contiguous to lease to get out of the building so that they can raise it and build a new building. I did a 95,000 square foot lease with them at 830 Brickell, which gives them all the flexibility in the world to move into the new building at 1401 once it's built. So Santander is going to happen. There's no question about that. Citadel is going to happen. The other building, the third building, is the one that is at 848 Brickell. And that's sort of this joint venture between the Ardid family and Sterling Bay out of Chicago. And so I read this morning that I think they got commission approval or an okay for one of the layers, which is there's a few more layers to go before they can start the build. But I think if all 3 come online at the same time, Jim, we're going to be back to 2010 again, where you have the softening of the market, right? 830 Brickell, we were so well positioned. We were the only new building in 2020 when the migration happened during COVID. They were literally lining up, and we're like, hey, get in line, be quiet, settle down. Everyone's going to have a chance to lease here, okay? Just take it easy. We'll get you in the building, all right? Like literally sitting there with a catcher's mitt. But I'm very fearful that if all 3 of those buildings get built on Brickell, we're going to have a softening of the market. When the market softens on Brickell, it's going to soften everything in downtown, in the Gables. It's been the rising tide of Brickell has helped everything. For instance, Coral Gables, we talked about a minute ago, where the top of the market rents at one point in time were $48 are now $68, right? So a nice spike in rent. And I think that there's a trajectory to continue the growth of rental rates in Coconut Grove and Coral Gables and Brickell for that matter. But supply changes everything, right? Simple economics, supply and demand. We have good demand in a good market. If you have a supply of 2 million square feet-ish, probably more than that, probably about 2.3 million square feet. And if it comes online within a couple of years of each other, it's going to soften the market a little.
Well, the answer to that is convert your approvals to multifamily. When you're doing multifamily on an office site, everybody's values go up around it, but that's just me.
Well, some believe that Cain's site, which is right on the bay, right, east of Brickell, is a great resi site. Ken doesn't care. He'll build what he wants, when he wants. And he wants to build office, but man, that really would be a special site for resi.
Well, I think you can build mixed use. You can do office on the bottom, resi in the middle, and upscale hotel on top, and everybody gets their cake and eats it.
But I want to talk about that for a second, okay? Because I'm not sure that's the greatest scenario for an office user, okay? We have a couple on Brickell, right? The old Banco Santander, not Banco Santander, Brickell Arch. What was Brickell Arch before? Espirito Santo Plaza, okay?
Oh, yes.
The old Espirito Santo, you got the Conrad, resi, Four Seasons, office, hotel, resi. That worked. Those were small. Those were a couple 100,000 square feet of office each. Not a big deal in a good market, okay? I'm not so sure every tenant wants to be in a mixed-use building. John Buck's trying to get financing right now for a mixed-use project in the Miami World Center area. And, right out by, by Brightline, just to the east of Brightline. They're looking to do apartments above office. It's a little bit more challenging to convince a major tenant, 50, 100,000 square foot tenant to be in a mixed use. And I get the whole different lobbies, different entrances and all that. But without naming names, there was a site downtown that Hines had for a long time.
Just name names.
Well, I don't care about the site. I'm not going to name the tenant.
Okay.
And they were pretty close on a 75,000 square foot tenant. And from talking to my contact there, the biggest issue they had was that it was a mixed-use project and had resi. It wasn't all office. And they just didn't feel as comfortable. So I'm not sure 100% that mixed use is always the way to go.
I think you could overcome that with brandy, but then we only have a couple minutes, so I don't want to go through all that. I think that if you did the right brand, that the people would come, but that brings its own nuances to the transaction. So I guess the real bottom line is office is good. Office is subject to a lot of different things. And in a market where 1 million square feet of supply moves the entire market, Miami's at risk if we deliver 2 million square feet at the same time.
Yeah, it was 1.5 million, right? And now if all these were built, it'd be probably like 2.2, 2.3. So yes, point taken, and absolutely. But to build a building today is going to take 4 to 5 years, right? By the time to build a high-rise 50-story office building, 4 to 5 years. So we've got some time here, right, to continue to escalate rents, to absorb the small blocks of space that we have available in the market. We continue to see migration. I want to point out, though, if we don't fix the schools and traffic, people are going to get fed up, and they're not going to relocate down here. Ken Griffin has been doing everything he can to help expand schools so he can move more people down here. But the people who are relocating down here usually will send their kids to private schools. They're filled. And private schools are up 20% in cost over the last couple of years. So you have a pricing and you have a lack of availability in schools, which we need to fix.
Well, I think that there's stuff like that in the pipeline. That's a topic for another day. Traffic, the planner's objective for traffic is to get it so bad that you get out of your car. That's an open secret that's been pretty around for a long time. I think that really what we'll see is a continuing build out of vertically integrated neighborhoods, with the office being a key component. Live, work,
and play. Don't leave your neighborhood. Why would you leave your neighborhood?
I don't. I just walk to lunch. I just walk to lunch. My biggest trip is 4 minutes to go to synagogue in the morning. So, that's my big trip. That's where I see everybody. Then, when I want to go to the office, I wait till off peak and everything's okay.
Jim, you know what's going to help us substantially in Miami dealing with the traffic? The commuter line on the Bright Line, right? Where Tri-Rail will stop in Wynwood, Design, North Miami, and people can actually get around the city on the commuter line. That's the game changer for us.
Well, let's see if that really happens. I think that transportation corridors on places like North Miami Avenue or Northeast 2nd Street are also going to be effective. But there's all kinds of existing things there that are going to have to be dealt with before all that comes to it. Brian, that's a whole nother show. I want to thank Brian Gale, episode 799, teeing everybody up for episode 800, which will be next week. It's our Christmas show. We'll have Rebecca Carlson on. We'll talk the past, the present, and the future of Freed on Business. Brian Gale's been a part of it all and will continue to be. Brian, I want to thank you so much. We'll follow up. Stick with us in the green room. We've got a couple things we want to say. I want to remind everybody to contact me, JimFried, Sandstone Realty Advisors. We work with high net worth individuals and some of the best developers here in town to help them execute their business plan. When you call me, it's always all about you, just like it is when you call Brian Gale and his team. I want to give a shout out to your team, Brian. Give a shout out to your team.
Yeah, no, I've got an incredible team of 8 people, and Andrew Trench and Ryan Holtzman and Lena Wheat and Eddie Quignon and Tatiana Fiore, Jeanette Mendoza and Nicole Gamara. They are all badass. Love them to death. They're like family to me. Nobody does it alone. And Brian just mentioned how he gets it done here in South Florida. I want to remind everybody, if you missed something on today's show, you can check it out on our replay on any of my social feeds, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, or Instagram, at JimFried or at Freed on Business. You can head over to where you get your audio at JimFried YouTube page, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Like I said, anywhere you listen to your audio, check out all our other 798 episodes. Amazing, Jim. I'm Brian. Amazing. It all was just an idea from Vivian, Brian. It was all my wife. I remember the Coral Way office. We used to the studio, right? We had the best time. We're going and we're growing. Mr. Mendoza taught me how to do it here on StreamYard. So high five to Mr. Mendoza. It always helps me look good for going on probably close to a decade at this point. I want to thank Warren Henry. I want to thank, you'll love this one, Brian, because you're on the board with me. I want to thank the University of Florida Center for Real Estate Studies, Warrington College of Business, and the Real Estate Center, the Bergstrom Real Estate Center. Eat them up, Brian. Eat them up. I hear there's a new freshman female that we've got to get into the real estate program if she'll allow us. Remember, the person wants to do something, finds a way. The other finds an excuse. Now, go out there and make it happen. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Brian, stick with us in the green room after this. Mr. Mendoza, it's all yours.